Now let's talk about what's going on in the news with this border crisis. We got the story from the Daily Mail. Mayorkas admits 30,000 Haitian migrants entered the U.S. as Del Rio camp is finally cleared. Homeland Security boss doubles previous figure as he revealed 17,400 are applying to stay. 8,000 have been deported, but 2,600 are missing. Now, here's the crazy thing. Apparently, there's a bunch of Chilean and Brazilian IDs these guys have.
Yeah.
So they were saying these are refugees. Like, oh, no, there's an earthquake in Haiti. They're refugees. What's happened here?
So they've already been given refugee status by another country. That's why they have the IDs, which is an interesting, I don't know a lot about immigration law here. Being an immigrant myself, I did a little research, but they were already given refugee status by another country. So that's why they have those IDs. Those are part of their packages to be given that status in those countries.
But do you know the specific details about why they're coming here? Just economic migration?
I mean, so things are economically they're pretty bad in a lot of places in South America. A lot of Haitians actually stayed in Mexico, for example, and a lot of them were given the refugee status in Mexico. After Trump lost the elections and after Biden came into power, there was a massive kind of like a spike in chatter and conversations in some of these Facebook groups attached to the migrant caravan groups that are out there. That's how they communicate. And the main narrative that was pushed forth is that the doors are open. Come now.
You were saying before the show, there's like massive networks of Facebook groups that are all like organized just to get people across the border.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, they're kind of automated. Like as soon as something changes or shifts, like don't go to Tijuana this time. Go through Texas. Don't go through California. Go to Texas now.
That's modern warfare.
Yeah,
having a bunch of network groups automated to tell people, oh, hey, now, like to push a message that triggers a reaction. And then what happens is you got to think about fourth and fifth generational warfare, which you cite very often. But in today's day and age, you can't send a plane with a bomber. You can't send a fighter. You're going to spark an actual hot kinetic war. But you can send disruptive forces. You can disrupt local economies. You can spread political ideology, or you can create a migrant crisis, which exhausts our resources.
You see script being handed out to these people as far as what they need to say. You see advice to people. Oh, if you can't make the trip, but you have young children, have your children make the trip for you, so they can later on claim you, and chain migration can happen.
How's chain migration work?
If I'm if I get granted citizenship, I can then ask for my parents to be granted.
So you can sponsor people. So if you, as a legal citizen, right? Let's say you know somebody who lives in the Philippines. You could sponsor them and assume, I think it's 10 years of financial liability for the individual. And it makes it substantially easier for them to come. Not perfectly easy, but substantially easier for them. So you get these kids that'll come. The parents will bring their kids. Once the kids are old enough, they say, I sponsor my parents. If the person who's sponsored accrues any public debt, then the person who sponsored them has to pay for it. So you basically can just...
Is it easier to sponsor family than friends?
Yeah.
It's hard to sponsor friends.
And a lot of these kids that you see on the border that are being smuggled over, I mean, they're not voluntarily taking the trip. There's a few videos out there. I've actually posted some of those videos on my Instagram account, which shows them they're clearly being. I mean, we had some medical professionals comment on there. I don't know. That's not my field, but I'm actually experiencing people under the effects of things like Rohypnol.
Wow. What's it called?
Roofies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I've seen people under the effects of that with the lack of dilation.
So why do you think this weird stuff is happening where they're giving out scripts and they're sending out these mass messages?
I mean, it seems to be like an organized attempt on just moving a bunch of people into this country. And when I say organized attempt, I was in Tijuana for the first caravan when it hit there. And it's clearly organized. People are being transported. Organizers were being paid in dollars. The camps were being set up in certain places and were being completely supplied and funded by people from California driving down and giving them supplies. With this current version of it, you see people waiting on the other side of the border for some of these people as soon as they cross and getting basically distributed across the country. You see people on the southern border of Mexico, as soon as they cross, basically catch them with buses and organizing their transport on the way up. So there's a whole logistical process that's being organized by somebody.
Are they bringing them from South America, or are they there waiting to catch them when they enter Mexico?
I mean, they are basically the whole advice that they're given on some of these social media groups is to amass or organize in groups. It's safer for them, right? Different than it was with the last Honduran, kind of mostly Honduran migrant caravan. One of the reasons they avoided going through the central part of Mexico into Texas was because most of the members of this caravan were actually 18th Street gang members, which traditionally have a rivalry with the 13 Mara Salvatrucha people. So that's why they went all the way through California to avoid that.
Interesting.
Wow.
But these guys are Haitians, so they don't have that problem. Well, Chilean Haitians, they don't have that problem, so that's why they went through straight into that spot. I mean,
any ideas why they're trying to get all these people to come to the U.S.? I mean, I know the people on the internet have a lot of ideas.
I mean, it's an interesting way of disrupting your
enemies, or
I mean, if you have enemies abroad, you have people sending chemists to show cartel groups how to make fentanyl in Mexico. You have fentanyl laced heroin exploding all across this country, and it's being produced in Mexico. And you have a cartel group in Mexico that grew exponentially during the COVID epidemic, and the only reason it did so was because it had access to the Pacific side seaports and an open relationship with a supplier from China. So
That's what I was going to ask. China seems obvious.
It's pretty. A lot of people in Mexico that observe these things closely, and I have a lot of friends that are still active.
It sort of feels more and more like China planned our downfall 50 years ago, and we're like catching it at the last minute. It's too late.
I mean, from my experience, looking at some of these things progressing, you see this new cartel down there, the Cartel de Jalisco de Nueva Generación, the new generation cartel. A lot of videos on them on social media where they have all this military equipment and they're raising their rifles and stuff like that. They are expanding like at a dramatic rate across the country, and people don't realize, they can't figure out how it is possible for these groups to be expanding. And they're like, well, I mean, they're a violent group and they have connections in Mexico. They're obviously a proxy group for somebody externally. And then you realize that on the state side, these criminal groups are using Chinese banking apps to hide their money to send back to Mexico. Right? So,
Nice.
Wow.
and also fentanyl. Just the massive amounts of fentanyl being brought into Mexico and now being produced in Mexico. People say, "Oh, criminal groups in China are smuggling it out." That's not how China works. That there's not a secret Chinese criminal enterprise that doesn't talk to the government out there.
Right.
If it's coming out of China, it's Chinese state knows about it.
Yeah.
Legalized weed brought fields of classically planted marijuana fields turn into poppy fields in Mexico.
Whoa.
And somebody figured that
So we got to legalize opiates now, so that the fields will turn into what? Like
I mean, so
meth labs?
so the heroin out there is not that strong, not like the Afghani stuff. So they laced it with fentanyl.
Wow.
So they legalized weed in Mexico, and then they started planting opiate.
As soon as you saw
poppies?
the legalization of weed in California, some of
Yes.
the crops changed into poppy, and this is around the time of the prescription opium epidemic and how it was kind of waning down, and they were ready for something else, and that something else was fentanyl laced heroin. And now the new thing is bogus pain medication laced with fentanyl. So now you're finding weird pill presses in Mexico, and they're manufacturing something that looks like a.
But this is killing their own customers.
That is the suspicious part of it.
Yeah.
Classically, cartels didn't behave that way. Sinaloa cartel wouldn't behave that way.
Right.
But this is a new breed of militarized narco-insurgency that is probably a proxy group of somebody outside of the country.
China.
I don't know.
That's the Opium Wars.
Come on. Who else would it be?
They play the long game,
Yeah.
and I mean, the Opium Wars technically ended 170 years ago, but I don't think they ever ended. They want to get back,
Yeah, I heard that with Afghanistan, that the Taliban shut down the poppy fields, but then as soon as we came back in, we started them back up. Is that true? I don't know if that's true.
But I don't have any experience in the Middle East. I do have friends that were out there, and they say that that was part of the actions of the U.S. in Afghanistan was to protect some of those fields.
Wow.
There's images of American troops in poppy fields. I imagined that they were real. I don't know.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.